YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Yesterday I did not post a video. Guys, I apologize. I got really tied up. I was actually shooting the show for Let's Fish TV on a lake that I'd never been to, Bell Cow Lake, just east of Oklahoma City, and I had an experience yesterday. So I had my trusty cameraman, Sean, and you see him on some of my streams, it's OK12. But Sean was helping me film and everything, and guys, I'm just going to tell you, the day wasn't going very good. And today we're going to talk a little bit about flipping heavy cover and how to keep a positive attitude even when the day's going bad when flipping. And this is a very direct flipping conversation that I think we should have, and based off an experience I had yesterday. So y'all stay tuned. If you have not yet, hit that sub button in the bottom right-hand corner and comment below. If you could pick one lake in this country for me to shoot a TV show on, or maybe even just a YouTube show, where would it be? Where would you like to know more about and have me go out there and try to catch some bass? I'd love to hear what it is. And I hope y'all like this video, and I'll see you here in just a second. All right, guys, so yesterday I was out on Bell Cow Lake shooting a TV show for Let's Fish TV. Never have been to that body of water, but Barry Stokes, the host of the show, asked me to be there. So I showed up, and I literally had one day to shoot this TV show. Sometimes that's a little scary. Well, I didn't have a lot of history on Bell Cow, so I call up Hallman. I'm like, hey, man, how do I need to go catch these fish? And he told me a swim jig, a frog, there's a bunch of water willow. Well, right there, I get a lot of confidence because I like fishing water willow. Call my buddy Brandon Tuttle up. Used to be with me at Prestige Worldwide Fishing, and he'd been there like 4 or 5 weeks ago, something like that, and told me he caught some more shad spawn. So that kind of went out the window because the shad spawn's not going to be going on still. I get there, water temperature's 82 degrees, and the fishing is tough. I burn probably the first 2 hours of the day, and I'm throwing a swim jig and a frog, and the fishing, I hadn't even had a sniff of a bite. And I'm like, oh crap, today is going to be one of those days. I'm not going to get very many bites today. Still haven't even had the first bite. And I was fishing shade lines. I was fishing everything that I felt like I should be fishing to get those bites. Well, from history, from knowing about just fishing water willow, and sometimes in the summertime it gets kind of tough to catch them out of it, but you know they're still living in it because, especially with the water dirty, they're going to stay in it. There's not a whole lot of other things for them to get into. So, you know what? I need to pick up a flipping stick. Well, I picked up a flipping stick, and I start flipping around, and it's windy, and I'm flipping a lightweight, and I lose one, like right off the bat, and I catch one. I catch another one. I lose another, like really good one, jumps off at the boat, which that's just going to happen sometimes. Well, I've got a fish or two in the box, and everything's going pretty well. And then I go through a string of losses that I can't even describe to you. So, and Sean was just kind of like baffled, just like I was. So what I was having to do is I was having to flip dead in the middle of these big clumps of water willow. And the fish were just tucked way back up in there. And you know, when you look at water willow is just a standing grass in the water. Well, it doesn't look very thick, but when you get down in the root system of it, where it's really growing up and that really thick stuff, it doesn't take a whole lot for those fish to come off. Well, that's exactly what happened. I can't believe the amount of fish I lost, and it was my fault. And this is, I hope you can learn from. So when flipping, one of the very most important things you do, especially if you're flipping any type of heavy cover, is you got to get that fish's head turned, okay? So when you flip in there, especially with a bigger weight, big line, big rod, you know, when that fish eats it, set the hook, you've got to get that head turned, because if you ever let them get their head down, they're going to wrap you around any type of cover that's there, whether it's wood or grass or pads or whatever. Well, I was having a really hard time getting these fish's heads turned, and coincidentally, whenever I would pin a big one, and I had quite a few really, really nice fish hooked, they would bury me down in there and they'd come off. Well, I started thinking, especially towards the end of the day when I've lost like 10 fish. Still have 2 fish. And I'm like, oh crap. Like, I just blew my chance to shoot this show, and it's because I didn't execute worth a crap. I started thinking back of some Florida experiences that I've had flipping and having some days where I lost fish. The one good thing about flipping like that is one thing you have to do when you're covering that kind of water and you're in that clutch situation where you got to make good decisions, you got to execute, is you really got to stay positive. And I'm not going to lie. There was a point yesterday where I was so super frustrated. I was tired. I was hot. And things were absolutely kind of starting to unravel a bit. And I know it's not a big deal. It's not a Bassmasters Classic. It's not a tournament or something. But when I shoot TV shows, it's a big deal to me because I want them to be really good. And especially with a lack of time to be able to shoot the show, I needed the show to turn out pretty well. Well, I remember back to a Florida tournament that I had, and it was a few years ago in the Harris Chain, and I went through a string of losses at that place where I was flipping Kissimmee grass, and I mean, guys, when I say I was losing them, like, I don't even know what I could have weighed in. It was bad. And so fast forward to this year at Harris Chain, I was flipping the same Kissimmee grass, and I never lost a single fish. Okay, so what did I change from the first time I was there to the next time I was there? What I did is I let the fish swim around my bait a little bit longer. Now that sounds kind of stupid because the fish might eventually drop your bait and you might miss that fish. So what do? I flip it in there, and instead of setting the hook on the initial bite that I felt, I let them swim for a second. And then I set the hook. What this is going to do is it's going to allow the fish to eat the bait just a bit deeper. You don't want to wait like 20 seconds or something. You want to just wait that extra second or two to make sure it gets down in their mouth. So when you set the hook, there's no part of the hook that is hanging outside the mouth, because when you're flipping really heavy cover, what happens is when you set the hook on them, and you set the hook as soon as you feel that fish, 9 times out of 10, that hook's hanging outside the mouth. If they wrap you in that heavy cover, it's going to knock the hook out. But if you let them eat it a bit deeper, especially with a straight shank flipping hook like I like to use, I use an Owner Jungle hook. Once again, not a sponsor of mine. That's just the hook I use. If you let them eat it a bit deeper, you land that fish almost every single time. Because then it'll pin them in that grass. You can go in there and grab them. Everything's gravy after that. Once I remembered that, and I pulled my head out of my butt, as my dad or my wife would say, I didn't lose anymore. I caught every one of them. And it was that simple adjustment on the water. Instead of just feeling sorry for myself, instead of focusing on every big fish that I'd lost, I pulled it together right there at the end of the day. I caught my 4 other fish. Had a couple bite it and miss it, but though you're going to miss fish sometimes. But the point is that instead of just dwelling on that and really taking back history of what I've experienced on the water, it really helped rebound the day, salvage the day. It turned out to be a really good TV show, honestly. And we caught some really nice ones. Now, hindsight's 2020, and we can all look back at tournaments where we've said, or tournaments or shows or whatever, or just a perfect fishing day where we just had everything go wrong and we lost a lot of fish. But if you pay attention to when you're flipping, and you're flipping that really heavy cover, you let that fish eat it for just a half a second longer, maybe a second, 2 seconds longer, you'll be shocked how many extra fish you catch. And I'm telling you guys, if I hadn't experienced that a few years ago, I wouldn't have been adjusted yesterday and salvaged the show. No question about it. I would not have salvaged the show. It would have been a tank of a show. I'd have had to cancel the whole thing, and the show wouldn't have aired. I mean, that's how close it was. I mean, we were at that point of no return. It wasn't going to work, and that's just where we're at. So, guys, I hope you learn about flipping from this, because if you are in that situation and you're flipping heavy cover and you're missing them and losing them and losing them and losing them, let that fish swim with it just a little longer. Set the hook, you can get them. And that's a big fluorocarbon trick. So, braid, you can kind of cut through that some of that stuff sometimes. You can get them out a bit easier. But when you're flipping fluorocarbon, like I was doing yesterday, you got to use that trick. And at that point, it doesn't really matter what hook you throw. You can throw an EWG, you can throw a straight shank. That whole hook myth of like you have to have this particular hook and this is the only way you're going to catch them. Go ahead and throw it out the window, because if you do what I just told you, you're going to catch a lot more fish and you can salvage your day. Guys, real fast though, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so. We're almost at 20,000. I honestly can't believe we're so close to that 20,000 mark. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Maybe drop a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are. And if there's a lake that you want me to film on, drop that below too. I'd love to hear what it is. Guys, thank you for watching this show, and I'll see you on the next video.